Come closer, sweetheart. Not too far, right here where I can see you. Because this isn't just a story, it's a memory. One that doesn't belong to one person, but to millions of families who lived a certain way without ever thinking they were doing anything special. You wouldn't believe it now, but there was a time when people didn't sit around wondering where their money went. They didn't check their bank accounts with worry in their chest. They didn't say, "We earn enough, so why does it feel like we have nothing left?" No, back then, money didn't disappear. It stayed right there on the kitchen table. Every Friday evening, just as the sun dipped low and the house settled into that quiet golden hour, the same ritual began. A mother, or sometimes a father, would sit down at the table. In front of them, a small stack of cash, a pencil, and a row of plain white envelopes. The children knew the moment. They didn't interrupt, didn't run, didn't shout, because this was something important, something that held the whole house together. "All right," the mother would say softly, smoothing her apron. "Let's see what this week looks like." She picked up the first envelope, groceries, bills counted carefully, placed inside. This is what feeds us. Next, rent, a little more money. This keeps the roof over our heads. Then came clothing, doctor, church, and finally savings. Sometimes thin, sometimes almost empty, but never completely empty, because even in hard times, they saved something, even if it was just a few coins. And here's the part that made all the difference, dear. When an envelope ran empty, that was it. No card, no borrowing, no "we'll figure it out later." If the grocery money ran out on Thursday, then Thursday dinner got creative. A little boy once asked his mother, "Why are we having pancakes again?" And she smiled, calm, steady, not worried at all, because the flour's still here and the envelope's not. You see, sweetheart, that's where everything begins. They gave money boundaries, and because of that, it stayed. Now, after the envelopes were tucked away, something else began, the quiet magic of the kitchen. No fancy ingredients, no ready-made meals, just flour, potatoes, beans, maybe a bit of sugar if times were kind. And yet, from those simple things, meals appeared. 3 times a day, 7 days a week. A pot of beans stretched across days. Bread rose on the counter, filling the house with warmth. Leftovers weren't waste. They were tomorrow's dinner, waiting patiently. Sunday's chicken became Monday's meal. Tuesday's soup came from the bones. Even stale bread had a future. "Nothing is finished until it's been used properly," the mother would say, and oh, how true that was. Outside in the backyard, another kind of work was happening. Rows of vegetables stretched under the sun. Tomatoes, beans, potatoes hidden beneath the soil. Children ran barefoot between the rows, careful not to step on what fed them. "Look," one would shout, holding up a tomato, "it's bigger than my hand." And their mother would smile. "That one will feed us twice, maybe 3 times if we're clever." During the war, they called them victory gardens, but to families, they were something simpler. They were survival. They were pride. They were freedom. By 1944, millions of these gardens covered the country, backyards, rooftops, empty lots, and together they grew nearly half the vegetables people ate. But growing the food wasn't half the story, because when summer came to an end, the real work began. Glass jars lined the counters, steam filled the air, hands moved quickly, carefully. Tomatoes, beans, peaches, pickles, each jar sealed, each one labeled, each one a promise. "Why so many?" a child asked, and the answer came steady as ever, "Because winter always comes." Down in the basement, shelves filled with rows of food. To anyone else, they were just jars, but to that family, they were security. And when hard times came, they didn't panic, they didn't rush to stores, they simply walked downstairs, picked a jar, and carried dinner back upstairs. No fear, just quiet certainty. Now, inside the house, nothing was wasted. Not food, not fabric, not even the smallest scrap. When a shirt tore, it wasn't thrown away, it was mended. A sewing basket sat nearby, always within reach. Needles, thread, buttons saved from old clothes. A child would come in, worried. "I tore it." And the mother would simply say, "Come here." No anger, no frustration, just hands at work. New isn't always better. If it's still strong, it still has life. And when clothes were truly worn out, they became something else. Quilts, rags, rugs. Nothing ended, everything changed. Even cleaning supplies were simple. Vinegar, baking soda, soap made from scraps. "Why don't we buy the fancy ones?" a child asked, and the answer was always the same. Why would we if this works? Now, outside the home, something new was beginning, quietly. A sign appeared in a shop window, "Buy now, pay later." It didn't seem dangerous. In fact, it seemed helpful. Take something home today, pay for it over time. And for a while, it worked. But something changed, not loudly, not all at once. The space between wanting something and owning it started to disappear. Before, people waited, saved, thought about it, sometimes decided they didn't need it at all. Now, they could have it immediately, and that small change changed everything. Money became invisible. No envelopes, no counting, no clear limits. Just a card, a signature, a promise to pay later. And later, sweetheart, has a way of becoming heavy. Bills began to arrive, quiet at first, then more. And one evening, a mother sat at the table and said something simple but very powerful. "I don't know where the money goes anymore." Because money had stopped being something you felt and became something you owed. At the same time, another change was happening. Neighbors, once deeply connected, began drifting apart. There was a time when people didn't own everything. They shared. A ladder moved from house to house, tools passed between hands, food exchanged across fences, skills were traded. A seamstress helped fix clothes, a neighbor repaired a fence, another watched the children. No money, no receipts, just trust. But slowly, that too began to fade. People started buying their own, relying less on each other, living more separately. And with that, costs increased, connections decreased. Life became more convenient, but also more expensive. Families started noticing something strange. We make more, so why do we feel poorer? And the answer wasn't one thing, it was everything. Less cooking, more buying. Less fixing, more replacing. Less sharing, more owning. And over time, the old habits disappeared, not because they stopped working, but because the world stopped teaching them. But here's the beautiful part, dear. They were never truly lost. Every now and then, someone plants a small garden, starts budgeting with cash, mends instead of replaces, and they feel it, that quiet sense of control, that calm, that steadiness. Because those habits were never about being poor, they were about being wise. So now I ask you, when was the last time you really felt your money? Not tapped, not swiped, but truly felt it. Do you fix things or replace them? Do you know your neighbors or just live beside them? Have you ever grown something and watched it become your meal? Because maybe, just maybe, the story isn't about the past at all. Maybe it's about what we choose to carry forward. And if even one small part of this stayed with you, then this story did its job. And if you'd like more moments like this, more stories that bring back the quiet wisdom of how life used to be, subscribe to Moments We Remember. Like this story if it touched you, and share it with someone who still believes simple things matter. Because stories like this don't belong to the past, they belong to anyone who remembers. Now go on, sweetheart. I'll be right here when you come back for the next one. Come back. Yes, right here. I knew you would. Because once you start remembering, it's hard to stop, isn't it? Now, last time, we talked about the things people slowly let go of. The envelopes, the gardens, the mending, the neighbors who felt like family. But tonight, I want to tell you something hopeful, something quiet but powerful. Those things, they didn't disappear completely. They just went to sleep for a while. And now, they're waking up again. Let me tell you about a young couple, not so different from people today. Busy lives, bills piling up, always working, always earning, and still asking that same old question. Why does it feel like we're getting nowhere? One evening, they sat at their kitchen table. Not so different from the tables we talked about before, except this one had no envelopes, no pencil, just a phone glowing softly. "I don't understand," the woman said. "We make more than my parents ever did." Her husband nodded. "But we have less." Ah, you've heard that before, haven't you? Now here's where something interesting happens. Instead of rushing to earn more, they decided to try something older, something simpler. The next Friday, they brought home cash, real bills, real coins. They sat down at that same table, a little awkward at first, a little unsure. "What do we even do?" he asked. She smiled. "I think we start by giving it a place." And just like that, the envelopes came back. Groceries, rent, savings. The first week felt strange, limiting, almost uncomfortable. But by the second week, something shifted. "Did you notice?" she said. "We didn't overspend." By the third week, they started to feel something they hadn't felt in years. Control. And not the tight, stressful kind, the calm kind, the kind that lets you breathe a little easier at night. Now let me tell you about something else that came back, something green, something quiet. The garden. It didn't start big, just a few pots on a balcony, tomatoes, a little basil, maybe some peppers. At first, it was just curiosity, a hobby, something to try. But then something happened. The first tomato ripened. She picked it gently, holding it like it mattered, because it did. "This came from us," she said. They sliced it that evening, added it to their meal, and for the first time in a long time, food felt different. Not just something bought, but something earned. And slowly, the garden grew. Not just in size, but in meaning. They started planning meals around what they had, instead of buying first and wasting later. And just like that, another old habit returned, using what you already have. Now here's something beautiful, sweetheart. It didn't stop there. One evening, he tore his shirt. Not badly, just enough to notice. His first instinct? Throw it away, buy a new one. But she stopped him. "Wait," she said. "I think we can fix it." They didn't have a sewing basket like before, but they had something else. Curiosity. They watched, learned, tried. The stitch wasn't perfect, not like the old days, but it held. And something shifted again. "This feels good," he said. Not because they saved money, but because they didn't waste. And that feeling, it grows. Soon, they started fixing more things, using more, throwing away less. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Now let me take you outside their home for a moment. One afternoon, they met their neighbor. Really met them. Not just a quick nod, not just a polite smile, a conversation. "Hey," the neighbor said, "I noticed your plants. I grow herbs too." And just like that, something opened. A few days later, the neighbor brought over mint, fresh, fragrant. "No need to pay me," they said. "Just share something when you can." And there it was again, that old rhythm. Not transactions, but trust. Not prices, but people. Soon, they were sharing tools, advice, meals. And without even realizing it, their life became a little less expensive and a lot more connected. Now listen closely, sweetheart, because this is the heart of it all. They didn't go backwards. They didn't give up modern life. They just added something back in. Awareness. They started asking, do we need this? Can we make this? Can we fix this? Can we share this? And those questions changed everything. Not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily. The bills felt lighter, the stress felt smaller, the home felt fuller, not with things, but with purpose. And one evening, sitting at their table, the same table where it all began, she said something softly. "I think we're finally living within our lives, not chasing, not catching up, just living." Now I want to ask you something, dear. Have you felt that shift yet? Even a little? Maybe you've tried budgeting. Maybe you've planted something small. Maybe you fixed something instead of replacing it. Or maybe you're just starting to think about it. That's how it begins. Not with big changes, but small ones. Because the truth is, those old habits never stopped working. They were just waiting for someone to remember them. And maybe that someone is you. If this story felt familiar, if it made you pause, if it reminded you of something your family once did, then don't let it stop here. Subscribe to Moments We Remember for more stories like this. Like if it made you reflect. Share it with someone who needs a slower, steadier way of living. Because we're not just telling stories here, sweetheart. We're remembering how to live. And next time, I'll tell you about something even quieter, something people rarely talk about anymore. How patience became the most valuable thing we ever lost. I'll be right here when you come back.